Hello everybody, this is Jamar Dawson from Remnant Outdoors. I hope you're doing great today. What I wanted to talk about specifically in today's video is tips for the first time gun buyer. A lot of folks have come up to me in the last couple of weeks and asked, Jamar, I want to buy a gun for the first time, what do I do? And so I figured there might be some more people out there that are going to ask me the same thing, and I thought, why not make a video about it? So we're going to do this video in two parts. First are going to be my 7 considerations when buying a gun for the first time, and then second are my actual recommendations. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, the first consideration is how it fits in your hand. There are thousands of pistols on the market, and every single one of these have unique grip dimensions. Glocks, for example, are typically wider, so they complement bigger hands, while Smith & Wessons are typically narrower and are more accommodating to smaller hands. Finding the right fit is crucial to accuracy because it affects grip characteristics, length of pull on the trigger, and even offhand placement for counter torque. It may seem like a foreign language to you, but once you start shooting, you really will see how big of a factor that actually is. Now, just an example, my instructor that I had at a recent pistol class that I attended said that he almost quit shooting pistols because he was so inaccurate with the first gun that he bought. He eventually discovered that the grip was way too wide for his small hands, so he sold it, and now he's deadly accurate with his pistol. Number 2 is having sights that work for you. The important aspect about sight picture for new gun owners is the ability to get on target fast. This is typically aided by a large, bright front sight and intuitive rear sights. Like the first consideration, you really need to go to a gun store and get your hands on a gun, take a look down the sights and see if they work for you. Dots may work, a little notch in the back with a big dot in the front sight may work. Just go and find out what works for you. Number 3 is a thumb safety. While this is a bit of a hot topic in the gun community these days, I believe there's a lot of value in having a traditional thumb safety on a pistol, especially if it's a hammer-fired gun. It adds a little more confidence to the new gun owner when handling a loaded weapon and protects against the inadvertent striking of the firing pin by the hammer if you have a hammer-fired pistol. As you get more comfortable with handling pistols, you can look to guns that don't have these thumb safeties, but I think that they are pretty crucial for the new gun owner. As a new gun owner, it's imperative that you put as much quality time on the range as humanly possible. And while dry fire exercises are helpful for reinforcing certain techniques, nothing replaces live fire practice. Since you obviously need ammo to do this, you need to think ahead and include ammo availability in your search for your first gun. I recommend anything that the military or police use, like the 9mm, because it's popular and resultantly easier to find. The next consideration is weight. With the gun market diversifying as it attracts new customers from various walks of life, pistol designs have naturally followed suit to market to more people. While this is relatively good intention, a downside is that certain design features actually work against the owner, and the greatest of this is the rise of lightweight guns. Often marketed as lightweight or featherweight pistols, these options negatively affect your ability to manage recoil. New gun buyers may think that lightweight guns are less scary and offer less recoil. However, the physics tell a different story. Since bullets apply an equal reaction in the opposite direction, this means that the force is applied to your gun and eventually into your wrist. The heavier the gun is, the more this felt recoil is absorbed by that mass of the gun. Thus, those little pretty pink and purple colored pistols actually produce more felt recoil than a heavier full-size gun when fired with the same ammunition type. Not only is more felt recoil unpleasant to shoot, it also impacts your ability to get back on target for subsequent shots quickly. Additionally, it's likely that you'll develop a pre-shot flinch as you anticipate the bang, which will negatively affect accuracy as well. To help manage recoil, you need to select a pistol with adequate weight so that the force of the shot is dampened by the mass of the gun appropriately. 1.5 to 2 pounds is appropriate in my opinion because it provides enough weight while not being too cumbersome. Another important consideration is barrel length. Barrel length is important because it plays a significant factor in downrange accuracy. As you probably know, the inside of a barrel has spiral grooves called rifling, which allows a bullet to spin. The longer a bullet is under the influence of these grooves, it assists in stability. Additionally, longer barrels result in an increased muzzle velocity and projectile energy, which translates to a greater effect on a target. The last consideration is the availability of aftermarket accessories. While this consideration may not seem like a big deal at first, picking a product with a decent amount of aftermarket options will save you time and money in the long run. In the gun world, accessories like holsters and magazines are often made for specific makes and models by third-party vendors, so keep that in mind if you're eyeing a rare or less popular pistol. Glock, for example, is one of the more popular brands in the market, and as a result, There's a plethora of aftermarket magazines, holsters, sights, and part kits available. When I first bought my pistol years ago, I had no idea how rare it was at the time, so there were very few aftermarket parts that I could find, and the ones that I did find were very expensive. So based on these considerations, here's my suggestions for first-time gun buyers. Keep in mind, some of these guns may be a little bit hard to find depending on when you're watching this video. I made this video during the middle of a pandemic, so a lot of guns were off the shelves, but if you do see one of these, I highly recommend you picking it up. First on the list is the CZ75 XL. This isn't the most easy to find gun. It kind of just came out, but I shot this a couple of weeks ago, and then I shot it a couple of weeks prior to that, and it was one of the most smooth shooting guns. The gun felt solid. The design was beautiful. It really didn't feel very heavy, but there was nearly any recoil every time I shot that gun. And the most important thing, however, is the sights. I put that gun on the target. I was at the range in Gluckstadt when I shot this. I put the front sight on the target, I pulled the trigger, and every single time I did that, it hit where I was aiming at. So I would highly recommend this gun if you could find one. It's a decent price. You could even use it as a conceal and carry gun because it just really is a relatively small profiled weapon. Next is the Smith & Wesson M&P 9mm. This is the full-size variant. Smith & Wesson has a long storied history of making quality guns. If you could find this, I highly recommend you giving it a shot. Next is a CZ75 P-01. This is my favorite pistol. It's almost like a medium size. It's not a full size technically, but it is a hammer-fired all-metal gun. And so those are kind of rare these days. So because it has all metal, even though it's relatively medium size, it still feels like a full-size gun. It fires well, it's super smooth, it eats up just about every ammo out there that you could find. And if you could find this gun, I would not turn my nose up at it in any way, shape, or form. Next is the CZ P-09. This is a wonderful pistol. It is a full-size gun, has a long barrel on it, amazing sights. A lot of people compete with it, at least a lot of people are starting to find out about this gun and compete with it because CZ is really customizable and almost built for the competition ground. But if you could find one of these, I highly recommend you snatching it up. Last on my list is the Glock 19. I know I kind of dissed Glock a little bit during the video, and it doesn't meet all of my specifications from the considerations I gave. It doesn't have a thumb safety, for example, but it really is a great gun. I owned one before, and I really didn't see a whole lot of issue with it. Like I mentioned before, the grips are sometimes a little bit too wide for some shooters, so if you're buying this for a husband and wife, try to keep that in mind. But if the Glock fits in your hand and you can get used to the sights, it is great because there's so much aftermarket support, from holsters to additional magazines to just about whatever. So it's not a bad gun. It's a striker fired polymer gun. It's a good weight to it, great barrel length. So it should fit just right in your collection for a first-time gun buyer. Well, I hope you guys got something out of these considerations and recommendations. Keep in mind, you'll need to go to a gun store to handle these pistols to see if these things meet your criteria. So do your research on a couple of items, go put your hands on a couple of them in person. The most important thing is that you find something that works for you, that aligns with your needs, and that allows you to operate in a safe and productive, efficient way. Get some training, practice responsibly, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comment section. God bless, stay safe.
You don't mind. They don't need come and drown. Leo, when you buzz, when you buzz, when you buzz, when you buzz. Hey, in the sky, switching time zones. The clouds open up for me.